Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott on Right Angle for BillWhittle.com, brought to you by paying members, of course. And, you know, the floodwaters have yet to receive. It's going to be a long, hard, wet slog cleaning up Houston and the rest of Texas. And there are so many great private organizations out there doing so much great work. You know, we hear about FEMA, we hear about the Texas organization does the same thing, all the government, the National Guard and all that. But really, in the end, it may be the private charities, the churches, those organizations that do the best work, I think. And I wanted to give the three of us a chance to kind of pimp for our favorite private relief organizations. Scott, you have the longest firsthand experience with this sort of thing, I'd guess, out of the three of us. If somebody is looking for a number to call or a website to pull up to write a check to, whether it's for $500 or $5, and they want it to be a little more personal or maybe just a little bit better than the Red Cross, where do you tell them to go?
You know, first of all, I can't wait till my wife gets home so I can tell her I was pimping for the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief Fund.
I had to do that. You know me.
Somehow that just doesn't seem right. But actually, the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, you gave us a heads up yesterday, Steve, that we might be discussing something like this, and that actually motivated me to go to their website. And the website URL is too long for me to dictate to you, so just search for Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, and that'll get you there. And there is a donation page there. They are, of course, already staged and ready to go and at work. In fact, they were before things started to get really ugly down in the Houston area. What I like about the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief people is the combination of their near military precision as far as organization goes. I mean, the unbelievable logistical miracle that it is, but also their just unswerving graciousness, cheerfulness, and sense of the human need in things. Like, they never get lost in the job of distributing goods and services. They always seem to hold on to that human element, and they draw volunteers from across the country who get together. A lot of these folks are retired people who are really in the second half of life and decide that to move from sort of success to significance, as Bob Buford would call it, and they have done really incredible work. I saw back in the year I got married, there was a big flood in Missouri, and I was in Excelsior Springs, Missouri, and a bunch of houses got wiped out in that area, and they set up a staging base at Pisgah Baptist Church on the top of the hill. They immediately found the highest ground that they could find, and then they began providing everything that people needed. And a friend of mine and I, who had a pickup truck, were running back and forth between Pisgah and down in the valley to deliver stuff to people. As time went on, it seemed like the Baptist organization got better and the people there got more cheerful. While I watched this poor overworked lady from the Red Cross, and frankly, she was overwhelmed. She was just her, and she was kind of handing out checks and trying to figure out what people needed. But she was drained, and the whole thing was beating her down. But it seemed like the Baptists drew joy from the service. The other time I ran into them, by the way, was after the Oklahoma City bombing. And I went down there and actually got some training to serve as a chaplain. And the idea was to go and help the people who were in the first responder crews and just be a comfort to them. But I asked permission because I had sat next to a guy from NBC News on the plane. I said, can I go and try to be a chaplain in the area where all the journalists are set up with all the RVs and the satellite dishes? And they said, yeah, go ahead and give that a try. And so they equipped me to do that and did it. Right now, they're helping folks in that flood area. You can make a contribution. I made a very minor contribution within my minor means, but please do all that you can to help through the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief Fund.
You know, that's great. All the time we spend criticizing the press, it's easy to forget that they're human beings too, and the fact that you thought to minister to them, that's quite remarkable, Scott.
Let's not go too far here.
Hey, I'm telling you, Bill, I know you're being facetious, but in all seriousness, I ran into a guy who was from a Los Angeles TV station, and he was sitting on the step of an RV, and he was just utterly weeping. And I went over and I talked to him and I said, how's it going? And he said, I just asked my producer to send me home. And I said, why's that? And he said, I can't look at that building anymore. I can't look at the open, yawning maw of that disastrous, exploded building.
How about you, Bill?
Well, I'd love to tell you that I had a charity, but I haven't been watching too closely the microscopic details on the relief efforts. So my candidate would be the Cajun Navy. I'm
Oh, yeah.
relatively sure. I'm relatively sure that they don't have a website or a place to make donations. I'm going to assume that they don't. Although I'm sure if you Google Cajun Navy and they do, then undoubtedly they'll have one. So go there and help those people out. They seem to be one of the most effective groups of people on the scene. It's just a bunch of people that have their own little boats, and they basically either trailer them over or just run them over to areas where they have these big flood reliefs, and they just go from house to house and rescue people. And I'll tell you what I like about the Cajun Navy. I like the fact that there is no Cajun Navy. That's my favorite part of the Cajun Navy. The entire idea of individual free citizens self-organizing is my favorite part of this whole story. It's my favorite part of the country. The idea that, yes, certainly FEMA, and if things are very bad, the United States military can provide enormous amounts of logistical relief and so on. But what I've been seeing more and more of in Houston is just groups of people getting together and pushing cars out of the rising waters, or people getting on boats, helping kids in, with life preservers and so on. That's not just the Cajun Navy, but the Cajun Navy represents to me that perfect American combination of initiative and cooperation without coercion. The Cajun Navy is not a bunch of reservists who've been, forced to, for 2 years after, graduating from the people's schools and so on. They're just people that have boats and like to help. And every time we have one of these disasters, it's such a strange thing to say, but usually the worse that things turn in America, the better the people become. And it's very reassuring to see all these people. So many of these people were displaced by Katrina. We remember if nothing else, I want to say it was just a public relations disaster. It was obviously a disaster. But it's nice to see things working on a very small personal level, and that's why I like the Cajun Navy. By the way, Steve, you never mentioned where you are.
Oh, I probably should mention that. I'm in an undisclosed location in the south of France this weekend next. My wife and I are enjoying a little summer holiday, except we're not really on vacation. She's working on a novel, and I'm doing what I always do, just in a much prettier location than usual.
By the way, Steve should ask people if they can speak Cajun over there. Bill, I saw a live video on Facebook of this guy driving down this highway. I think he was in Texas and headed south. And as he drove along in one lane, in the next lane, it was nothing but, he was passing vehicles, it was nothing but boat with a pickup truck, boat with a pickup truck, boat with a pickup
heading
truck.
in.
One after another, just dozens of them heading down.
Wow.
Probably
that's
hundreds.
wonderful.
And a great thing about the Cajun Navy, even if it turns out they aren't taking money, and I encourage all of our viewers to look into that, but even if they aren't, pass the name along. Give them some recognition. A lot of these folks, they're not even looking for a pat on the back, but if you gave them one, even online, that might make a world of difference in their lives too. So pay some of that back. There's a great organization, the Mennonite Church, going back 12 years ago now. My friend Will Collier, back when he was my permanent co-blogger at the old vodkapundit.com, he put together myself and Michelle Catalano to wrangle together a bunch of other bloggers to help raise money for the Mennonites, because as Will educated me, they do great work with almost zero overhead. And we often think about the politics of Katrina and the end of the effective part of the Bush presidency and all of that. But what we had was a blogger, myself, an aerospace engineer, Will Collier, and a liberal Democrat, Michelle Catalano, getting together and raising or helping to raise just a ton of money for the Mennonites and the great work that they do. You can look them up at mcc.org. They're still out there. They're always some of the first responders. And if you want to give $1 that's going to go a really long way, that's not a bad place to spend it. So if you're in Texas, hang in there, find the high ground, stay dry. As I said, it's going to be a long, hard slog, a wet, long, hard slog. But you got a lot of great people out there helping to look out for you, and we're going to help them along as best we can too. And thanks for watching. For Bill Whittle, Scott Ott, and all of our paying members at BillWhittle.com, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.